Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. I've got John McCollum of Eden Ridge Outfitters on the phone, based out of Oregon. John, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jay. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm actually in Colorado today and took a little break from skiing, doing a little fishing, and life is good. So what part of Oregon do you guide in, or where do you live?
I live near Coos Bay in a little town called Myrtle Point, Oregon. We're basically here on the southern Oregon coast, guiding, multiple units throughout the state, but our specialty here is Roosevelt elk, the Columbia black-tailed deer, and the recently delisted Columbia whitetail as well.
What would you say out of those is your favorite to hunt?
I like it all. I like all the hunting aspects.
You don't have one favorite over the other? My wife always says whatever's in season at the time.
That's a good answer. No, I'd have to say bugling Roosevelt elk is probably my favorite, and then I'd have to follow that up with rutting Columbia blacktails.
Okay, that sounds pretty cool. I want to today kind of go over the Oregon big game draw and have you kind of diagram for us how and break down for us how Oregon does its draw, kind of from beginning to end, as if I was a hunter calling you, asking you, how do I get a tag in Oregon?
Well, the only real downfall I have with Oregon, is that we're pretty stingy on our tags. We only give out 5% of our deer and elk to non-residents and 3% towards our antelope and bear. So, you hear a lot of people talking about, 10%, being stingy. They really don't talk much about Oregon in that aspect. But we are on what they call a preference point system. Therefore, for example, Jay, if we have 100 tags given out in a particular unit, that means there's going to be 75% of those tags, or 75 tags, will be given out to the people with the most preference points. The remaining 25 tags will be given to the people on a random draw. The unfortunate thing for non-residents is they always fall in that 75% pool. So if they don't have the most points for that particular species, or number of preference points, their chances of drawing is minimal or none.
I'm not sure, John, if you're familiar with the way Arizona just made their change a couple years ago, where they give 5% they still give the same 10% of the tags to the non-residents, but now they give 5% to completely random draw and up to 5% in the maximum pool draw. So what you're telling me is Oregon is different in the fact that it's a true preference point state where you have to have the amount of points in order to draw that tag.
Yes. And like I say, so for example, if there's 100 tags, there's only going to be 5 tags given out for that particular hunt. Now, another thing that we've all got to keep in mind here is half of those tags that are drawn that in any particular year go into another pool for us guide outfitters. So half of those tags will be lost the following year, being given to a guide outfitter. So, for example, Jay, you could call me for yourself and say, hey, John, I'd like to come shoot a Roosevelt with you. What do you got? So in November, late October, November, we're sent a packet from the state telling us what tags are, to be allocated for that year for that program, and we can apply for those. There's a certain process we got to follow and go through and make sure we're permitted for the certain areas and whatnot. And the Oregon State Marine Board and everybody's on board there to make sure we're in compliance with that. And then once we apply for that, we go into a random draw. There's a certain test that we have to take, to make sure that we're eligible for those tags as well. So just let me know if I've lost you at all there, Jay.
Well, in that situation, what you're saying is I would still have to have the most bonus points for someone putting in for that particular unit. Did I misunderstand you, or does it mean
no, you would not. you personally would not. That tag, I get tags every single year that I can sell to somebody that doesn't have any bonus points. So let's say, for example, let's take the Winnehaw. That's a pretty popular one for everybody in northeastern Oregon up there. If you don't got pretty close to maximum points as a non-resident, you're not going to draw that tag. I mean, you're just waiting in limbo there. It takes like at least 20 plus points to draw that tag as a non-resident. So if you yourself say you had 10, 11, 12, that's what I kind of call no man's land. You're never going to draw that tag. You're not old enough. You don't have enough years. So you could call me. I could get lucky enough and draw that tag if I was permitted for that area, and I could guarantee you that tag if I was to draw it in the guide outfitter draw. And those tags in those areas where there's only like 10 or 20 tags, which are very limited in Oregon, is on an alternating basis every other year. So, for example, I believe that tag is available in the general draw for the general public this year. So next year, that tag would go to the guide and outfitter program. So you follow where I'm going with that?
Yeah, my question is, for your guide service, do you have guaranteed tags every single year that someone that listens to this podcast, if they wanted to, they could go on a rosy hunt with you every year? Of course, they're going to have to pay for it, but do you get tags every single year that they can go on?
In all the years that I've been involved in this, there's only 1 year that I have not drawn an elk tag. On the average, I draw around 2 to 3 every year that I could name.
And are those primarily archery tags or muzzleloader or rifle, or what are those?
It's a mix, so it's a random draw. I apply for probably around 15 to 20 different elk hunts, archery. There's only one archery Roosevelt elk permit, or area that's controlled in the state of Oregon. The rest of them are over the counter. So most of them are all rifle, and there's a new muzzleloader hunt which takes place in late December.
Okay, so for those out there listening that want to spend a little dough and want to go on a hunt, generally what type of price tag are guys looking at to go on a guaranteed hunt?
You're looking at anywhere from $8,500 to $12,500.
Okay, and that's for a Roosevelt elk. Now, are they still bugling then?
In the archery season, of course. Rifle season, no. Our archery season goes from the last Saturday of August to the last Sunday of December. Second to last Sunday of December. September. And then our rifle seasons, the first season, which is only 5 days long, will start on the 10th of this year and end on the 14th of November. And then the second rifle elk season will go from the 17th of November and end on the 25th, whatever that following Sunday is, through Thanksgiving. And the muzzleloader season opens on the 8th of December and goes to the 23rd of December.
How do you conduct your late hunts? Are they primarily glass 'em hunts? Spot and stock,
it's all spot and stock. We've got lots of logging roads around here, private timber companies. We may have to pay a access fee, to one of these private timber companies. I've got, 2 or 3 ranches that I like to hunt on and pay access for a lease every year. That gives us that much access. And then I'm also permitted on the National Forest and BLM ground as well.
How much would you say of your elk hunting is Roosevelt, and how much is, guiding and, for Rocky Mountain elk?
I mean, all I do is 100% Roosevelt.
Okay, so that's an easy question. You yourself, on your own personal tags, do you apply for those premium units, and do you know about the premium Rocky Mountain elk units in Oregon?
I got a lot of friends. I've spent some time in those Rocky Mountain elk units, not an overabundance of it. I know which are the most, sought after units. I just like Roosevelt hunting. That's where my heart's at. I've taken a handful.
Have you hunted Rocky Mountain elk enough to be able to tell the definitive difference as far as behavioral patterns or bugling or such between a Rocky and a Rosie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, matter of fact, I was fortunate enough to have a Unit 8 tag there 3 years ago in Arizona, and I've hunted it once with rifle late in Unit 1 in Arizona, so I've been fortunate enough to have a couple tags down there, one with a rifle, one with my bow, and then I had a early rifle tag for Rocky Mountain in Wyoming. So, yeah, I've been fortunate enough to chase some bugle and elk.
What would you say the big differences are?
I'm going to say the Rocky Mountain has a tendency to be quite a bit more vocal than the Roosevelts. But, on the right day, the right place, I've seen the Roosevelts act just as much, be as much vocal as a Rocky.
There's a body size difference, I hear, or no?
Yes, there is. A big bull, and when I say a giant, he's going to be 20% bigger body weight-wise than a Rocky Mountain. I've seen some of these bulls be in excess of 1,000 pounds.
When guys say that Rosies don't bugle as much, they're not as vocal, how much of that is that they live in very dark, dense timber, and maybe you just can't hear them as well?
Well, our ground, if you've never been out here in Oregon, is very broken up. And unless you're standing on top of a ridgetop or something and the bull's down the bottom of a canyon, you're just over the break of the ridge on the other side trying to get something to sound off, you're more than likely inclined not going to hear him. I'm also a timber faller by trade, and in those circumstances, when I'm working on one side of a ridgetop and my partner's on the other, I can barely hear that guy running a chainsaw, let alone an elk bugle. So
not only the vegetation, but the lower canopy as well. Not only the timber, but the lower canopy and the, big timber basically muffles a lot of sound.
Yes. Oh, yeah. But they will speak to you. I'm going to say, our Roosevelts, key bugling time, I like personally around the Labor Day weekend, until about that second to last week, they seem to be the most vocal for me.
What kind of success rate do you have on Rosies as far as, is it a deal where, yes, everybody gets a bull or gets a shot, and then it just becomes a matter of, being selective and trying to find a good one, or is just getting a bull a feat in itself?
Well, that's really kind of not a tough question there. Each guy's a little bit different. I'm sure you've got those guys that are looking for the biggest bull on the mountain, and then there's just those guys that are looking to collect a nice representative. What I tell guys, realistic shots, I call 30 yards or less, during archery season, and I'm going to say I've ran about 95% success rate in giving guys shot opportunities. And as you well know, archery elk hunting is one of the, as far as I'm concerned, one of the toughest things to do on the North American continent, especially with these great big giant Roosevelts, because if you put a bad hit on one, your likeliness of being able to get a follow-up shot or get him on the deck is super tough. That's why I tell guys, I go, you're better off to let him walk off and try to get him the next day rather than taking a shot to try to, weave the needle through the tight hole there, and something bad happen, because you need to get both lungs, and or the heart.
Yeah, for sure. So your elk hunts, you take people that draw tags every year, and then, like we talked, you also have the ability to sell a few tags. Would you say you run a big outfit or a small outfit or medium? How would you describe yourself?
I'm going to say I take around 20 different big game hunters a year, so I don't take a lot. I don't take a lot of people, but then again, I'm not a minimal guy either.
So guys that are listening that say have never applied in Oregon, are they so far behind the eight ball that you would just kind of laugh and say, golly, man, if you've never applied? How would you address that group of people?
No, you're never behind the eight ball. You just need to find somebody like myself that pays attention to the statistics, and the math doesn't lie. There's rifle elk tags out there that we can help you draw with 2 to 3 years of applications. So to think that you got to draw the absolute best unit out there that might take on the average of 10, a lot of guys that end up coming to me that are ready to pull the trigger on a Roosevelt, they've never applied in Oregon. So they either got to buy a governor's tag or they got to try to win the raffle, or they need a guide outfitter tag. I tell them, I said, hey, look, we can buy your preference point this year, buy it next year. We'll have 2. We can retake a look, revisit that at 2 points. And there's a handful of, 2 or 3 units right there that we can draw a late rifle tag and help them and have a good chance, a good success at shooting a decent bull. And what I call a decent bull in late November is in that 240 to 270 class. Sure, it's not Boone and Crockett, but it's just a nice representative type bull that they would be happy to take home and say that they've got their Roosevelt.
Right on. What would you say, like the majority of ground, Rocky Mountain compared to Rosie's, is it 50-50 in Oregon, or what's the ratio of, Rocky ground and Rosie ground in comparison to the total?
Well, to the entire state, Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young, anything west of Interstate 5 is classified as true Roosevelt elk. And that's just basically where they've taken their finger and drawn the line in the sand and that type of thing, I'm going to say it's about 80% Rocky to 20% Roosevelt.
Okay, that's good stuff. Let's back up a second and talk about the dynamics of the draw. You talked about it being a preference point state. When is the deadline to apply, and do you do paper applications or do it by credit card? How does the actual mechanics of the draw work?
There's a paper application, or they can go online to the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and that's kind of a tough system to navigate through. But if a guy's real computer savvy, he can usually figure that out by his hunting license and apply for his stuff online. I mean, most of the guys out there nowadays, are members of like the Hunting Fool or Epic magazine, Epic down there with Jason and Adam down there, and those guys put out some good stuff. I've shared some information with those guys and helping them get their picks and whatnot, on the best units. But May 15th is the application deadline. I mean, I do a free application service for all the guys that are interested in hunting with me. So if they have any questions or concerns or whatnot, or want a little bit of help with that stuff, or they can get in touch with me, and I can definitely get them pointed in the right direction.
Do you have to buy the license? In Arizona, you have to buy the license and eat the license in order to get a point. Is that the same in Oregon?
That is the same in Oregon. It's $167. So by the time, I find a lot of guys at the Wild Sheep Show, that apply, and they're like, oh, yeah, I've been applying in Oregon for sheep. And I'm going, well, have you been spending the $8 to buy your preference point for elk and deer? It's an extra $16. And they're like, no, I didn't know I could do that, or yes, I have been doing that. And that's how I've rounded up quite a few guys, that are, potential clients down the road that will be ready to draw tags over the last few years.
John, does Oregon differentiate between Rocky and Rosie in the application? And the same with deer. I believe you guys have blacktail, Columbian whitetail, and mule deer. Do you put in for all of those species independently, or is it just a deer application?
No, they break I don't know exactly how many different units we have in the state, but I'm going to say we've got probably close to 40, somewhere around there. So, for example, in my local area, I've got what they call the Powers unit. It's a 200 series for elk. So everything that is related to elk is a 200 series, and every unit is broken down by a number. Like the Powers unit is 226. Then you've got the Sixes unit, which is 25. Then you've got the Tioga unit, which is 24. You've got the Melrose unit, which is 23. So therefore you've got to figure out what area it is that you want to go to, and then that's basically the number that you would put down for that time frame in season. But
I guess what I'm saying is, do they break out Columbian whitetail blacktail, and mule deer, and they're all separate. So you're applying
Yes,
for each one of those. Then you have to pick areas that you want to hunt them.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, sounds good. Let's talk a little bit about deer. Talk about your favorite deer and a little bit of background on those deer. And now that they're huntable, talk a little bit about, before when they weren't and kind of the history of it.
The Columbian whitetail, I believe it was 1968, they were listed, on the endangered species list there. And then around somewhere, let's say it was 2000, I can't remember the exact year, but the feds felt that there was a big enough number there, and I want to say it was around 1,000 deer, 1,500 deer in the Umpqua Valley over there near Roseburg, and we were fortunate enough to get those things delisted. And now we got them to a huntable population, and they're doing great. Other than about 2 years ago, we had a real bad case of EHD, and it took a real number on them. The state did cut back on the tags a little bit in that North Bank habitat zone. We pulled back on a couple parcels of property that we have leased for private property there to hunt, and we didn't hunt any that year, those 2 years. And we're starting to see significant increases again in those deer numbers. And I was fortunate enough this year to have one of my clients take the new #1 SCI non-typical record this year.
What kind of antler configuration, how do they compare? Are they more like a regular whitetail or blacktail, or what would you say?
The way I describe them to people is basically you're hunting a real nice coos deer. They're about the same size. I believe the taxidermists that's what they're using is like a coos deer form to put these deer on after a guy is lucky enough to harvest one.
And so what kind of weight are we talking?
I'm going to say 110, 120-pound deer. They're not
What kind of terrain do they live in?
Basically, they live right along the creeks, and a real brushy habitat. They're a lot like a whitetail. They're real secretive, so that's where you're going to catch most of them is real low and, like I say, along the creeks and whatnot. If you're looking up real high in those wide open prairies and oaks and stuff like that, you might catch one out there every now and then, but typically real close to the brush, if not in the brush.
So they're kind of like their cousins in the fact that they're very sneaky and suspicious by nature.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've learned so much over hunting these things over the last, 6-8 years. It's unbelievable. I've never had an opportunity to hunt much whitetails myself, but I've learned a lot from a couple of the hunters that I've been fortunate enough to take that are actually true whitetail hunters, and I learned a lot from those guys.
How habitual are they, and they get scrape lines when they get rutting, and I mean, are they pretty much act just like their eastern cousins and Midwest cousins?
Oh, yeah, no, they're basically, I mean, like a twin to those. They'll be running around making scrapes and, following, big scrape lines and whatnot. And now that I know what to look for, I didn't really know what that was before when I seen one, and it's pretty obvious now when you find one. And truly a fun deer to hunt during the rut, but we only have one opportunity to hunt those deer in that time frame. Our whitetail deer hunting, for example, the bow season goes, like I say, the last Saturday of August to the second to last Sunday there of September. And then your only other opportunity is during our rifle season, and that takes place around the 29th of September to around the 10th of October. So you don't really get to hunt them during the rut. The only time we'd be able to do something like that if somebody was to win the raffle or step up and buy a governor's type tag.
Do they differentiate the raffle for a Columbian whitetail and a governor's tag for just Columbian whitetail, or is it just for deer and you can pick their three?
Yeah, it's just for deer. You'd have to put in for like the statewide deer, and then you could, Oregon's we have one of 4 deer. You've got the Columbian whitetail, Columbian blacktail, mule deer, and the regular eastern whitetail in the northeastern part of the state.
When it comes to fund allocations, I would assume, and it's just an assumption from someone from Arizona, that the mule deer get the lion's share of the allocation of dollars from those raffle and governor's tags. You would think having 3 unique species like that, it would be cool to break them out and have the money, allocated specifically for Columbian whitetail, for blacktail, and then for mule deer. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Well, our most of our raffle and auction tag money goes into the Access and Habitat program, and that program is designed for people to come forward, and ask for grants, to help do improvements, and allow the state to, pay for some access for the public to maintain hunting there. Like, let's say, Jay, you own a little 40-acre tract of land there, but it landlocks a bunch of BLM behind you or Forest Service. The state will come in there and either buy an easement or pay for an easement for a certain amount of years across your tract of land to maintain that public land behind you open to the general public. Because we're seeing a lot of that out here, in our neck of the woods. I don't know how it is down there in your neck of the woods, but it's really becoming a problem. We're getting some of these timber companies now that are, you got to pay for access to get on their ground and that type of thing. And I mean, it's just reaped a lot of havoc over the last couple of years. So people really need to be aware, of that, especially before applying if they haven't been, brought aware of this situation.
Yeah, I've never, trying to think if I've even actually ever stepped foot in Oregon. I don't think I have. I've been to Washington, Spokane, and Seattle. But from an outsider looking in, it's kind of interesting because you have very diverse political views there. You've got both extremes. From an outsider's perspective, when I look at Oregon, I look at it being an extremely liberal state. Curious your thoughts on some of the things as it pertains to hunting with, mountain lion hunting and such that not allowed and some of that, and how management of wildlife, what you see moving forward and kind of some of the changes you've seen since you've been doing your deal.
Well, that's always, you're playing with fire there. It's truly a double-edged sword. I wish we could, maintain our cougar hunting with hounds. Basically to hunt hounds and bears here in our state, we cannot use dogs anymore, and it's basically all spot and stock. The lion and bear predation, in my opinion, it seems to be a pretty significant situation out here. I was talking to my local biologist, Stu Love, there today, and he's telling me, a lot of the habitat change is really having an impact on our deer hunting, for example, and I just know if we don't got a good fawn, recruitment or survival rate, we're not going to have good numbers. And what he tells me is that they're having a difficult time, deciding or calculating inventory, as he calls it. So he truly, asked me to, say this out loud. It truly, as us as hunters, what helps him the most to help is to basically, he needs hunter cooperation with information for the surveys, back to the cougar thing. I don't know, Oregon has lowered the price of the cougar and the bear tags to $16.50 for non-residents. We used to be $191.50. So what's that saying? We're having more sightings. People are having more opportunities. Are they truly a problem? I don't know the true answer to that. All I can tell you is the last 2 years, I've seen 11 cougars in daylight hours. As far as I'm concerned, that's a little too many sightings.
So you've noticed a big increase in cougar sightings yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm in the woods a lot, way more than the average person. But, I mean, anybody and everybody that hunts with me, I ask them to, let's go ahead and buy you $33 worth of extra tags, to have a black bear tag and a cougar tag in your pocket. So if we're given the opportunity, we can take one.
How much of the predation do you feel the bears play on the big game animals?
In that late, we have a spring bear hunt. In that late spring bear hunting, I have seen, a handful of fawns eaten with my own two eyes. And I've seen at one circumstance I can remember, I remember 3 big boar males, casing a unit like a set of soldiers marching at about an even space, let's say probably 50 yards, 40 yards apart, walking north to south looking for some of those fawns in late May. And you know exactly what they're doing. They're looking for those fawns. And if they find them, they don't have a chance. If those fawns are not up on their feet within about 48 hours, 72 hours and able to run, I don't think their chance of survival is very minimal.
What is the legality of your bear hunting in Oregon with your seasons, as far as fall season, spring season? How does that work out?
Basically, our spring bear hunts are all conducted on spot and stock. You cannot use hounds. You cannot use bait. So basically, you just got to know. Pay attention to the bear scat that you find in the road or in the brush where you're hunting, and take a look at what they're eating, and then know that appropriate food source. Whether they're eating blackberries down in the creeks or they're eating the little flowers off of the huckleberry blossoms. You look for the little white flowers. And you just basically go set on a patch of that, with some dark, dense timber on the edge. Keep a close eye along the creek bottoms there in the edge of the dark timber, and you can find a bear.
How much of your hunting, well, let me back up. The timing of the season between the Columbian whitetail, the blacktail, and the mule deer, do they overlap, and how do you handle that as an outfitter?
The blacktail, the whitetail, rifle whitetail, and blacktail open on the same day, and the mule deer. They all open on the same day. On the bear with me a second here, the 29th, I think it's last Saturday of September this year for 2018. And the mule deer season will go to the 12th, the rifle whitetail will go to the 10th, and then the Columbia blacktail will go to the first Friday of November. So it's a very, very, open liberal season. And that tag is over the counter. A person does not have to draw that rifle blacktail tag.
Do you hunt blacktail?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Talk to me about blacktail, how much you do compared to the other species, and is it a passion of yours?
Yeah, I love the rifle blacktail season as well. If it was my personal choice, I would tell most people out there, we need weather. We need cool weather with maybe a little bit of rain. It's going to keep the deer on their feet longer. I like hunting them more particularly so around the second and second to last week of season to the very end. There's a good chance you can catch those deer in the rut. I've seen the rut start full swing as early as around the 25th of October. But then again, I've seen it start as late as around the 3rd, 4th of November. I think the moon, we need a couple of cold, crisp nights, maybe even a freeze or two in early October, and I think that'll truly spark off our rut. And it's usually not too far after that, maybe a week to 10 days after our first really hard freeze, the rut will begin.
They're blacktail. So you live in Coos Bay. Are you surrounded by blacktail, or do you have to travel for them?
Where I hunt for blacktails is down out of Jackson County in Medford, Oregon. If you pay attention to the Boone and Crockett record book, Jackson County used to be like the number 1 county for, Boone and Crockett type entries. The genetics down there, the age class, the number of deer, the feed, it just has all the right it just has everything that you need to create a good buck, a really good buck. And I just love it there. The weather's usually, a little nicer. It can get cold quick. Usually if the weather moves in, it doesn't last too long. The only thing that happens is with some super nice warm weather in early October, when we start getting the rain, that'll bring on some fog. So we might have some fog issues early in the morning to contend with hunting aspect-wise. But no, I love hunting them, and especially the rut.
Do you guide for blacktail as well?
Yes, sir. Yes. Bear with me a sec here. Yeah, no, we guide for them here basically the last 2 weeks of October and the first week of November.
Okay, sounds good. So if someone's interested in Columbian whitetail, you can help them with that. If they're interested in blacktail, you can help them with that and help them on the guided aspect of that. And then let's talk about mule deer. Do you guide for mule deer as well?
Yes, we do. I typically play that guide tag, guaranteed guide outfitter tags for clients. I apply for a few areas in southeastern Oregon and northeastern Oregon, and it's a hard tag to draw. For example, in the last 2 years, I've only drawn one mule deer rifle deer tag in the last 2 years, and it's a hard tag for someone to draw. I mean, it's one of those tags where it's taken 19, 20 preference points as a non-resident to draw that. So for somebody to come to me and say, hey, I want to get started and I want to start putting in for the trout creeks, that's when I inform them. I'm going to say, you're really wasting your time on that unless you've already got a bunch of points started now. So as far as, our landowner tags, it's something we didn't really touch on. There is landowner tags available, but I don't particularly care for landowner tags just due to the fact that we have to hunt that particular section of ground. Unless you've got a significant amount of area to hunt, like some of those guys over the northeast area, and they've got them unleashed up, I can't remember their name, Sheep Mountain Outfitters, some good guys over there. They've got some good country in that neck of the woods, and they're shooting some nice bucks over there. You need a pretty significant piece of ground to hold some good deer. Most of the stuff that we have over here towards my side of the state is a lot smaller. It might be 100 acres, 200 acres. And as you well know, that ain't a lot of real estate for a deer to stay there. And that's why I particularly don't care for the landowner tags. And I like the guide outfitter tags because then we can hunt the entire unit. You follow me? For sure. Can you go over some of the units that you like and talk a little bit about them, maybe compare and contrast them as far as specifically mule deer? And I'd like for you to do the same with the other animals we've talked about as well. When it comes down to the mule deer, your traditional, better mule deer units are going to be the Steens Mountains down there in the southeast part of the state. The Trout Creek Mountains. There's another really good hunt out there called the Northeast Muzzleloader Whitehorse. It's a weather-dependent type hunt. Let's see, up there in the northeast of the corner, you're looking at some of the Lookout Mountain, Snake River, Chesnimnus, Sled Springs. Some of those units up there can hold some really nice mule deer with the proper amount of homework. Central Oregon, I don't know a whole lot about the center part of the state other than it's really good during the governor's tags when those deer migrate down into that high desert country, around 4,000 or 5,000 feet in elevation, around the Fort Rock, Silver Lake country. One of the better upcoming probably mule deer units in Oregon, as far as I've been told and the research that I've done and a little bit of time of scouting I've been looking around in, has been the Warner unit down by a town called Lakeview. And they had a little mule deer initiative. They had a bio in there by the name of, everybody calls him Foz. just did a wonderful job with that down there, and they've taken some cougars out of that area, and it has seemed to have really helped with the upcoming of the new fawn recruitment and whatnot, and they're taking some tremendous deer out of there. I mean, I've seen some bucks come out of there in excess over 200 inches. And it's a tough tag to draw. There again, it's like 17, 18, 19 preference points as a non-resident. So somebody that's just wanting to get into it and get going, your chances of drawing that are slim to none. So you need to have been in the game a little bit to draw a tag like that. As far as, the Columbia blacktail, as far as it's concerned, the better units, I think the best hunt in the state is the 128M. That's the Applegate muzzleloader. That is probably my funnest hunt I've enjoyed over the years. There's a new one out there now. It's kind of been flying under the radar a little bit. It's called the Chetco muzzleloader. It's hunt number 127M. It's same time frame. It's just across the highway to the north. There was a 190,000 acre fire in there this year. It's going to make for some great feed and a good hunting opportunity for some guys that are willing to get after it. There's the Kalamiopsis Wilderness, which lies inside of that Chetco area. It's big, rough, rugged ground, but if you got some hardcore guys that are in good shape and dedicated and not afraid to be up for a challenge, that'd be a neat place to go hunting. Lots of bears, cougars, elk densities in that area are a little low, but I think your chances of killing a good buck in there, if you're a hardcore hunter and aren't afraid to put your boots to the ground, I think a guy could grind a great deer out of there.
Good stuff. What about the Columbia whitetail?
The Columbia whitetail, realistically, you need to have private. I mean, it's just the truth of it is you've got to have private property to truly be successful unless you go hunt the North Bank habitat. The North Bank habitat has just a very, very few tag numbers available out there for Columbia whitetail for somebody. And in my professional opinion, the trophy quality in that area has really, really slipped. I mean, really slipped. Not saying you couldn't kill a good deer out of there and grind one out, but your best bet is to find somebody like myself that has been managing a piece of property, only shooting one deer off of a 600-acre tract, and maybe letting that thing go to sleep for a couple of years and then going back and taking another one. If you find somebody that's doing that, your chances of shooting a nice buck are really, really high. It's just that you're going to shoot a buck, a good buck. It's just a matter of how big.
For sure. What about the sheep, and do you do any of the sheep stuff in Oregon?
Yeah, I just recently started getting into that a little bit. I've been fortunate enough to, knock on wood, myself and my boy have been fortunate enough to draw California bighorn permits in Oregon, and we've shot a couple of the biggest rams, I'm going to say 2 of the 20 largest California bighorns ever killed in Oregon. We both won gold awards there at the Wild Sheep Show in Reno. My uncle, he drew a tag the year before my son drew one. So yeah, we've done some sheep hunting there. I had a client, listen to this, he sends me his money for his license and his preference point for elk and deer. He doesn't send me the $8 for his preference point, his sheep application. So what do? John pulls out $10 out of his wallet, being the good guy, and I put my hunter, my client, in for the sheep draw, just to drop his name in the hat. Lo and behold, he draws. And we end up going over there. We shot
Did you tell him my $10 is not going to come as cheap as $10? You owe me more than that, bucko.
Yeah, I called him up and I said, I go, did you hear me screaming? He was from Ewington, Nevada. And I go, hey man, you're going bighorn sheep hunting. He goes, no, I'm going stone sheep hunting this year. And I'm going, well, you're going bighorn hunting too because you pulled the Rocky Mountain bighorn tag in Oregon. And he's going, no, I didn't. And then he goes, no, I didn't. Well, then I hung up the phone. I took a picture of his successful application draw there online, checking all this stuff for him, and I texted it to him. Well, the next thing I know, my phone's blowing up, and he goes, "Are you kidding me?" So he had to postpone his stone sheep hunt to the following year to do his bighorn hunt this year. And, that was a couple of years ago. And but good guy. It was just real funny the way it all portrayed out, and he now he can't apply in Oregon because it's once in a lifetime, on the sheep aspect.
Gotcha. And you guys have Rockies and California bighorn, right?
Yes. And like I say, when it comes to the sheep over there, we only give out 3% to non-residents. And there's only a small handful of units that the non-residents can actually apply for and be eligible to draw. Lookout Mountain, number 2, is the Rocky Mountain Bighorn permit. Then you've got the West John Day and the East John Day. I don't know exactly. I'm not permitted for that area over there, which season that is, if it's the third or second hunt. Just got to pay real close attention to that. Then there is the East Beatty's Butte is another season. Hart Mountain generally has 1 tag available for non-residents. Let's see here. We got the Hart Mountain, East Beatty's, and then the South Central number 1 is another one. And I've actually been on a sheep hunt over there with a friend of mine that drew the tag. And that's a big area over there. There's some decent sheep, but me personally, I tell all my clients to put in for lookout number 1 for the bighorn. There is lots and lots of rams. First year I ever hunted that for Tony there a couple years ago, one day scouting. In my notes, the bio told me that he calculated that there was 54 rams in the unit. And the first day of my scouting over there, I found 63 different rams.
That's a heck of a day.
Yeah. No, and
you found 8 more than he thought were alive in the unit. That's pretty good.
That's just it. And he gets to use a helicopter, and I was on. My boots were to the ground.
I'd have sent him a bill and said, "Hey, man, you spent all that money on helicopter. You should have just hired me."
Yeah. No, a good friend of mine by the name of Neil Thagger and his wife Catherine, they joined me on that deal. And Neil used to be like the number 2 guy for the National Welsh Federation there, and out of Cody, Wyoming. Just a real good guy. And he couldn't believe the amount of rams that we had. And we were, taking notes and writing it all down of how many we would see and what drainages we were seeing them in. And he goes, "Man, I just can't believe this." The only downfall to that area is that age structure of those rams over there. Don't take me wrong. We're killing some nice rams over there. Last year, I think they took 4 rams in the 179 to 189 area. And just awesome sheep, but they're, 6, 7 years old. I think one of those rams might have calculated out scoring 8 years old. I mean, could you imagine what those rams would be like if they got to be 9 and 10? I mean,
in other words, if they let them grow a little bit, you can't hardly sometimes blame the guys that draw tags, because a lot of them don't even know. But a unit like that, man, if you could let some of those rams grow, it would probably be just giants, wouldn't it?
Oh, there has been some great rams killed out of there, and then quite I must say 7 or 8 in that low to mid 190s. There's been some absolute just monsters in there. Great genetics. I mean, that's awesome. But just I'd like to see the age structure, the age class. Just 1 or 2 more years would just, man. I know what our statewide bighorn tag would probably sell for if they were to do something like that, because everybody would want it. You'd probably see that thing jump up, significantly.
Yeah, for sure. Let's double back to the elk units and talk a little bit about, even though Rocky Mountain elk isn't your specialty, talk a little bit about the elk units. As far as the Roosevelt is concerned, I like the Powers unit, the Sixes unit, the Chetco unit. The Chetco could really be a sleeper. Now, elk densities
are not as high. You got some private property issues you got to deal with there. There's a lot of national forests. We've got the big burn. But I think if you did the proper homework, you could really kill a nice bull down there if you did the proper homework. Back to the sixes, good numbers of elk, but then again, lots of private property. I really like that unit a lot. It's really, coming up a little bit more for me. Back to the powers, most of the guys that have bought governor's tags that have hunted with me in the past, few years, that's where a majority of them bigger bulls have come from. It's a harder unit to draw. It takes around average 10 points to draw that unit. Archery wise, I think one guy last year, non-resident, had 17 points and another guy had 13. Just a great unit. Then again, you got to worry about private timberland access. You're going to have to pay for that, if you don't elect to go with an outfitter. There is other private timber companies you don't have to pay an access to. There is plenty of public ground to hunt, but just great bulls in that area if you do your proper homework. I've killed.
Now that's Roosevelt, or this is Rocky?
That's Roosevelt. That's Roosevelt.
Okay.
I'll go back to the Rocky Mountain here in a sec. As far as up and down the coast here, the Tioga unit has a lot of elk. It's easy to draw. They have a 3-point restriction during rifle season and archery season. It's a big unit, lots of elk. But in my opinion, there's too many tags for a rifle. I do not guide and will not guide in rifle season in there, because you will get ran over. I mean, it's that bad. Not saying, the guy that knows the right spot, done the right homework, can't get it done. It's tough, real tough. Well, there's 2,100 tags given out last year versus a sixes unit where there's only 140. So you see the difference there. It's only obvious, way less pressure.
A huge difference, yeah.
Yeah, huge difference. So that's why I stick mainly to those 3 units right there myself personally. Then there's one other unit I'd like to talk about for the Roosevelt. It is an awesome elk hunt. It's long. It starts on August 1st and goes to the end of March. It's a rifle hunt. And basically, it's a rifle hunt, and it's in the Melrose unit. But you'll notice when you go do your applications online there that they're going to tell you there's a lot of private property. So you better have, have some place to go or know exactly where you're going. There's some big bulls in there. They've killed some tremendous elk. But what we're seeing now is fire danger in that neck of the woods. So if you don't got your bull knocked down in the first first week or so, week and a half, you're more inclined to just going to have to wrap her up and not come back in, somewhere around January, because that is an actual over-the-counter rifle elk tag area. And a bow hunter can hunt in there during bow season with an over-the-counter tag, even though you can use a rifle. And those guys may be shut out due to fire danger. Now, I don't want to go in there myself with a client and have to compete with somebody, in that general coast rifle elk season. So I'm just going to hope that those bulls run off into the thick stuff, and they generally start poking their heads back out real good in that first, second, third week of January. And then we've got, basically January and February to get them rounded up and corralled up and get them harvested. Yeah, but you need to more than likely be inclined to hire an outfitter unless you're from the area or you're willing to put forth the time and effort and do a lot of homework.
Good stuff, good intel there.
The Rocky, now back to the Rocky Mountain elk. The Winnehaw, Mount Emily, Sled Springs, the Walla Walla, Snake River, on that northeastern corner, that's typically where our better Rocky Mountain elk come from. Everybody that's been applying in Oregon knows about the Winnehaw or the Mount Emily here the last couple of years. Those 2 units have been putting out the better elk. I tell guys, they ask me about Rocky Mountain elk, and they're like, what could I shoot over there? I tell them, I say, realistically, if you go hunt hard, a 330, 340 bull is what to be expected, if you hunt hard. A good friend of mine was fortunate enough to take a really nice bull there this last year that was in the 370s in the Mount Emily. It was like 378, with his bow. But that guy is tough as anybody out there. And he definitely puts forth the time and the effort. He looked over a lot of elk to take that one, and that's the best one that I was aware of last year in that Mount Emily unit. The Winnahaw, I didn't quite get caught up. I haven't been caught up. I've been on the road quite a bit to all these hunting conventions and whatnot, and I haven't been, seeing any pictures on Facebook or Instagram or anything that's, people are fortunate enough to draw a tag in what they have harvested out of that neck of the woods. So, but those are better, 3-4 units over there. But anybody that's in pursuit of a 370 plus type Rocky Mountain elk, I just shake my head and tell them, I go, you need to go to Arizona, you need to go to Utah, Nevada, New Mexico. Those are your states down there. That's where you need to be Rocky Mountain elk hunting. Maybe a few units in Colorado, but being able to get a tag realistically. And they're like, no, there's 400-inch elk in Oregon. Yeah, you will find a needle in a haystack every now and then, but very rarely. And that's basically what you're looking for. But, I like to just keep it realistic. A 340 bull in Oregon, that's a nice elk. If you shoot something better than that, you've done pretty well.
Can you also buy landowner tags in Oregon for elk, or are there other ways other than drawing?
Yeah, you can get landowner tags over there in that neck of the woods. I don't have any intel, or I don't know anybody in that neck of the woods. There again, you're looking at, the size. You need a significant piece of ground that that's going to hold elk. And I just, me personally, I don't like landowner tags. Now the guy that might have, say he's got 30 or 40,000 acres, 50,000 acres over there, if he's got a significant chunk of ground and he's got a couple alfalfa pivots out there and he knows the elk are coming and going, then that would be a way different story. Then I wouldn't probably have a problem selling some Rocky Mountain elk tags over there.
Gotcha. And your problem with the tags is the land's too small?
In my neck of the woods, that's what we run into. When I have a landowner approach me, saying, hey, would you like to be interested in buying my guaranteed landowner tag, I'm like, it's not justifiable to me because, one, social media, the internet, landowners are asking a little bit more than probably what they should for that. I don't want to get into figures there and step on toes, but it's an elk. It's not, a piece of gold. And it just makes it tough, especially if I'm trying to attempt to reach out to the blue collar guy, that budgets his money and goes on 1 or 2 guided hunts a year. It's hard for me to keep my price point at that point to attract those guys rather than going out and trying to have to find a guy that has, a lot of money, that can truly afford to go and wants to go all the time. And, it just makes it tough for a guy like that, the blue-collar guy.
Yeah, let's take a quick break here. I want to thank all of the listeners for listening to this podcast and giving me so much support, and I want to thank you guys for sending me emails at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. I also want to thank the sponsors, Go Hunt Insider, and if you aren't already a Go Hunt Insider member, I highly recommend you do that. Go Hunt Insider is the best hunting resource out there for accurate draw odds and statistics as well as harvest data. They've also got a gear shop that they've got all kinds of gear, and it's gear that is directly picked out by Brady Miller and Trail Kreitzer and some of the guys that work there, and specific gear for backcountry hunts and with the hunter in mind. All you got to do is sign up for Go Hunt Insider and go to GoHunt.com Insider. Use the J Scott promo code. You're actually going to get a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card, and you can actually use that $50 right away. I've had some guys send me some Instagram messages and emails that they immediately bought Yeti Rambler cups and different things with that $50. But I highly recommend you guys sign up for the Go Hunt Insider. I want to thank them for their sponsorship of this podcast. Also, KUIU Ultralight Hunting. Go to KUIU.com. That's KUIU.com. You can also follow them on their Instagram account, and that's KUIU_official. Jason Harrison and his crew make awesome gear there at KUIU. Phonescope.com. I want to thank Cheston Davis. They make the best digiscoping adapter that adapts any phone to any optic, whether that be a spotting scope or a binocular, and soon to be actually rifle scopes, guys. It's pretty exciting. And if you use the JScott16 promo code, you're going to get a 10% discount. And then last but not least, the Outdoorsman there in Arizona, the Optics Authority, Cody Nelson and his crew. They do such a great job with their tripods, with their binocular sales, spotting scope sales, rifle scopes, any type of optics. They're the authority. If you use the JScott promo code, you're going to get a 10% discount there with the Outdoorsmen. I want to thank all those sponsors. And John, we've covered a lot of ground, and I'll give you a chance to cover anything that you think we might have missed. But I can't do a podcast with someone with Oregon without talking about the number one game animal in Oregon, and as a matter of fact, the number one game animal in the United States. And I say that with a smile on my face because I've got a handful of buddies that are just rolling their eyes. But and I don't even know if you do this or if you look at them like a lot of my buddies do, like they're just rats. But you guys are infested with turkeys. Do you get into the spring turkey hunting at all?
Oh, yeah. No, if there's something out there that I can say that's doing extremely well, that is the spring turkeys. I got on a couple of my whitetail places over there in the Roseburg Valley, Umpqua Valley, Roseburg area. They are just like fleas. They're everywhere. And
do you actually do guided hunts for turkey, or have you gotten into that, or no?
Yeah, we do take a few guided turkey hunts a year, not an overabundance. I got a couple good buddies of mine that do it a lot. My son, I've been, basically pushing those over to my boy. He's really liked it. I hate to even say it, but you want to know what? I've never ever killed one.
Oh my gosh! Well, you need to change that.
I shouldn't say that out loud, but I mean, I've guided a lot of guys to some big mature toms. And no, it's fun. The spring bear season, I'm usually pretty engulfed with that. So sometimes what I like to do is get a guy that he wants to come out and go, spring bear hunting, and the bear hunting is, late in the afternoon. So I usually roll those guys out of bed, and I'm like going, hey, let's put a turkey tag in our pocket, and we'll go turkey hunting in the morning and spring bear hunting in the afternoon. And that's usually the way we roll there. I mean, on the average, we'll take maybe a handful, 5 or 6 really nice toms a year. I don't get it a crazy amount of people, even though I do have the area to where I could take some good, some good toms, a fair number of good toms off each place. But they're everywhere. I mean, like you say, if there's one animal out there, that is absolutely thriving in our state, and that's those birds. I wake up to them every morning gobbling outside my window at my neighbor's house. And we live in town. Right here in town. So, that's funny. But, no, they are absolutely doing well, that's for sure. And they're everywhere. I mean, everywhere.
Well, that's good. A turkey nut like myself smiles when I hear that. I have yet to hunt Oregon. I've had several invites to get out there, and I'm usually tied up with my Gould's turkey hunts down in Mexico, but one of these days I want to get out to Oregon because I believe it's a multiple bird state. If I'm not mistaken, I think as a non-resident, I think you can take a couple birds.
Yes, I believe. Don't quote me on this, but I believe it's 3 spring turkeys. Two for sure, if not 3. And then you can also hunt them during the fall time.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. Are there any animals that we didn't cover that we need to, or are there any additional things that you don't feel like we covered that you need to?
No. I think we pretty much got, a majority of it covered there. If anybody has any questions, they can feel free to reach me on my cell phone. That's my lifeline. That's on my side all the time and whatnot. And I'd be happy to help anybody with their applications if they need some help or they got any questions.
Sounds good. Why don't you tell me and the listeners how the best way they can reach you and how they can follow along with your content?
The best way to reach me, is through my email, and they can basically go to my website at EdenRidgeOutfitters.com. All my contact info is on there, or reach me directly on my cell phone, and that's area code 541-290-2671, and I'd be, more than grateful to give anybody my 2 cents and my thoughts, especially if they have, started or haven't started or have a lot of points, and, help them pick a unit that best suits them.
That's good stuff. I appreciate you spending time with us and appreciate you being real candid about all the different areas and animals you hunt. It's obvious that you have a passion for it, and I want to encourage the listeners to reach out to you if they're interested in hunting Oregon. And just thank you for your time today. And I'll also link up in the show notes your website, and hopefully you'll get some people calling wanting to put in for Oregon. And look forward to speaking with you. Maybe we can do a hunt recap after the fall and see how you guys did. And I just want to encourage you to keep fighting the fight and doing the good job that you do with all your outfitting business, and I just appreciate your expertise today.
Nope, I appreciate you for having me on, and like I say, I'll look forward to speaking with you again in the late fall or, maybe before show season gets started next year. Generally that's a better time for me. They're just after Christmas, first of the year.
All right, and keep an eye on those turkeys for me over there, okay?
Hey, real quick, when is your gold season down there, for your turkeys?
Yeah, so typically I run my hunts April 15th to May 15th, and that's more, I could probably run them to June 1st, but I'm a big fisherman as well, and I like to get back up to Colorado and get the fishing and get ready. I fish the Green River in Utah quite a bit, and fish the Gunnison Gorge, usually the salmon flies. I went last year, and that's usually kicking off right at the end of May, early June, and so getting back here to Colorado is big for me to get ready for the summer fishing season. But yeah, we run them for about 30 days, April 15th to May 15th, and it's just a blast. They're a real special bird for sure, and beautiful white-tipped bird. So pretty cool. I am a turkey nut. I love those buggers and have loved them for a long time. So it's funny when I talk to guys like yourself sometimes, like they're just like rats. They're rabbits. They run in front of my truck and I speed up trying to, and it's just like, and then you've got Arizona where, we have some good turkey hunting in some places, but we just don't have tons of birds. But then I talk to other people who are like, they're just everywhere. They're like ground squirrels or, gophers running across the road. I mean, it's just like, it's funny how, different places, populations are bigger than others and what have you. So,
right,
buddy, I appreciate you spending time with us, and look forward to seeing your success this fall.
Okay, thanks again, Jay, for having me, and any way I can help, just give me a call.
All right, buddy, sounds good. Take care. God bless.
All right, bye-bye.